Today we're looking into the heart of the spider and exploring the origin and the history of Anya Corazon, the Spidergirl, Araña. Created by Mark Brooks and Fiona Avery for 2004's amazing fantasy series, Spidergirl first appeared in that very first issue, but let's take a step back and look at her early life. Gilberto Gil Corazon was Anya's father. Gilberto worked as an investigative reporter for the New York Herald. Anya's mother was Sofia Corazon. This made Anya half Puerto Rican and half Mexican. Sophia sadly ended up passing away, and it was revealed that she was a hunter for a group called the Spider Society. The Spider Society is an ancient secret society founded in Castile on the Iberian Peninsula in 1099 AD. The group's initial purpose was to worship spider deities and the spider totems like the Great Weaver, the Other, and Anansi, the first Spider-Man, who served a role in the grand web tapestry of life and reality called the Web of Life and Destiny, the place from which Madame Web in the modern world drew her power from, and which brought both Morlun and the Inheritors into the multiverse to attack all the spiders in the Spider-Verse. The Spider Society fought for peace during the Crusades, and then later there was a faction of the Spider Society that opted for more violent means to achieve their end, which fractured and split off and became the Sisterhood of the Wasp. Both factions settled into century-long strife with each other. At the tip of the Spider Society's efforts are two people, the Mage and the Hunter, who, when together, have their powers amplified. The first of the Hunters was a guy named Benicio del Corazon. The Hunter persona is passed down through the bloodline of the current Hunter, which is how Sofia Corazon ended up being one such Hunter. Anya was born in Mexico City, but after her mom died, she lived in Brooklyn, New York with her father, who called her Mi Arañita. She attended Milton Summers High School in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, with best friend Lynn Sakura, not to be confused with Sakura Spider. Her name is actually Ana, but she added the Y since people around her struggled with the Enye. One night, while out walking in Fort Greene Park, Anya ran into a fight between the Spider Society between Miguel and the Sisterhood. In the fight, Anya was stabbed and mortally wounded, bleeding out on the walkway in the park, with Miguel by her side. Miguel performed an ancient ritual which required him to take the locket her mom had given her to save her life, something that meant a lot to her, and then she was reborn into a silky cocoon back in her own bedroom. Anya woke up with her room covered in webs and a new tattoo on her right bicep. Anya was born with powers, innate powers, but the arm marking was to activate them. And because of that, it was believed that Anya would be next in line to take the mantle of the Hunter, alongside the counterpart Mage, which happened to be Miguel. Anya ran into Miguel again back at the park, and he gave her the business card for a place called Webcore. Webcore, founded by Ezekiel Sims, was a front for the Spider Society. Ezekiel Sims is the guy who became a spider totem and who trained and imprisoned Cindy Moon, aka Silk, for many, many years. Armed with this new information, Anya visited Webcore and met a hacker there named Ted, and that night went to a nightclub with her friends in a decidedly early 90s outfit. That night, Ted called her and picked her up in a helicopter. They had to go help Miguel, who'd gone into a hive of the Wasps. In the fight to escape Miguel, Anya's tattoo started to activate her new powers, but she passed out before it fully happened. She was the future of Webcore, the key to the Spider Society, they thought. The next day after field hockey, the tattoo activated again, and a witchblade-looking carapace covered her arm, but then disappeared. Her powers were slowly manifesting. Anya went to train at an undisclosed location in the wilderness of the Yucatan Peninsula. Miguel left her alone to learn how to survive in order to awaken the Hunter inside of her. Thirsty, tired, and alone, Anya found herself surrounded by wolves when her mother appeared before her and activated her powers. The carapace covering Anya's body, which gave her the armor and protection, allowing her to escape from the wolf pack. When she was picked up, Miguel said every hunter chooses their new name. She chose the name Araña, which it turns out was her mom's maiden name. Miguel met with Anya's dad for approval. Then back at Webcore, Anya had a fitting for a new costume, trying on everything from Supergirl to Wonder Woman to Sailor Moon to Kill Bill, even Magneto and Sue Storm and Trinity from the Matrix outfits, before settling on her final first look. She wore this and activated her armored exoskeleton during the next confrontation with the Wasps. She also made her spider-themed bolo, web shooters, and even later on, tracers. She then started going out on vigilante work, patrolling the streets of her Brooklyn neighborhood, still working with Miguel, Nina, and Ted, like when they busted a judge for leaking information to the Wasps. They took him for questioning, then Miguel and Araña fought an army of Wasp drones. They then discovered that the Wasps had initiated their own recruit, a response to Anya, another kid, using the name Amun. So Miguel and Araña ended up fighting with Amun and Wasp leader Vincent. Then she learned that Amun was John Casilla, her high school class's new foreign exchange student. But when he was sitting there in class, she couldn't tell if he recognized her as Araña or not. And he did, and seeing her tattoo confirmed it, so Amun started researching Anya and figured out that her father was her weakness, a weakness he was about to exploit. When Webcore was escorting the transport of a judge, the Wasps ambushed the convoy, and Amun and Araña ended up battling in the rain, both of them confirming they knew the identity of the other. But to make it worse, her father showed up for his reporting, and he was in danger, forcing Araña to surrender. She wrote a letter to her Webcore team saying she was resigning and not coming back to Webcore, and they read it while Miguel was in the ICU. She also stayed away from her dad, and while sulking on rooftops, she met Spider-Man for the first time. He told her he wouldn't quit because with great power comes great responsibility. In the next fight with Amun, Araña nearly drowned because her armor was too heavy, so it finally forced her to learn how to control it better. But she was mad. The hunter had finally come out, and this happened right after Ted told her just how connected she was now to Miguel, and that he was now in critical condition. Anya went to Miguel's bedside and helped him recover, and in turn he revealed the truth about her mother and the family connection to the Spider Society. He also dimmed her tattoo so it was no longer noticeable until she activated her powers. She also took a moment to decline an offer to join Dan Slott's GLA team before saving Amun during a fight. In turn, they made a pact to keep each other's identity secret. The Wasps went to Miguel's bedside to assassinate him, but Araña showed up and fought them off. Later, she made a tactical Vespa scooter that would have made Gwenpool proud. Kinda silly, but with the smaller CCs of the scooter engine, she could drive and get around, not having a license, being that she was around 15 at this time. Then when the Wasps decided to host a villain summit and invited the heads of various crime syndicates from around the globe to attend, Araña had a run-in with Lady Chi, head of the Clan Phi crime syndicate. Araña called her Mujerzuela. The next target was South American crime lord Felix Haddad. Araña remembered that this was the guy who was at the funeral in her dreams, the guy who had killed her mom. Then after being chased by the likes of the FBI, CIA, and NYPD, the two factions ended up in a brawl with Araña trying to take down both Amun and Haddad at the same time. She nearly lost control of the hunter inside of her, but the two villains managed to escape. The team assaulted the lair of the hive with Araña confronting Haddad head-on, but he managed to get control of her mind and forced Araña to drive them away from the compound. It was a vision of her mom, Sophia, that broke Araña out of her trance. She then trapped them in the Chrysler 300 and sent the car over the cliff into the water to sink to a watery grave. Miguel showed up, appalled, which meant Anya dove into the water to try to save herself from becoming a murderer. That was in 2005. 2005 is the same year Araña also showed up in Marvel's MC2 continuity, where she took over for Madam Web, was engaged to Black Tarantula, and even merged bodies with Mayday Parker at one point after Mayday was injured in a blast. A storyline that involved a Spidergirl clone named April Parker, later called Mayhem. In the 2006 Spider-Man Araña one-shot, she met up with Iron Spider armor-clad Spider-Man in the city, and he cheered her up by working with her to take down a couple muggers. This is when Miguel was having premonitions of Nina being obliterated by a monster and dying. She was to become the hunter, it turns out, but wasn't, so she could be protected from this fate. It proved futile, though, as in the fight to prevent the Hive from using a spider totem to activate their own hunter, Miguel and Nina were mortally wounded and felled in battle. Anya then released the hunter within, all her power, directly into Nina's body to bring her back to life, which fulfilled the destiny, and she became the Spider Society's hunter. Despite this, Nina was angry, blaming Miguel's death on Anya, and so they split and they went their separate ways. Her next stop was in Miss Marvel's book in 2006, at a time when the superhero world was fractured in civil war. Iron Man tasked Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, and Wonder Man with bringing the unregistered Araña in. They went to Brooklyn to search for her and ended up going to a fast food joint called Chicken Cow, which is where Anya was now working behind the counter. When a guy in a Joker mask attempted to rob the restaurant, the heroes took him down and Anya exposed herself as Araña. One night soon thereafter, Gil met his daughter on a rooftop with a cake for her 16th birthday, which is when 1D and Carol decided to show up to apprehend her. They took them in, but Anya was given a tour of the facility, and basically the situation forced her to reveal herself to her dad. The reason they took her in is because they wanted her to register under the Superhuman Registration Act. Her father agreed, and because of her age, she didn't have to stay at Stark Tower for training. She could still go home with Gil. Their first time out was to bring in Araña, Julia Carpenter, and the Shroud. Anya was tasked with getting Julia's daughter Rachel to safety before the cavalry arrived. Anya said that if this is what they were doing, taking moms away from kids, something that hit home for her, then she wanted nothing to do with it. It was hard for her, and she ended up crying herself to sleep later that night in Carol's arms. In Doctor Strange: The Oath, Anya went to see Night Nurse for treatment next to an injured Iron Fist who was wounded after being in a fight with Flag Smasher. She then went to Quantico, Virginia for additional training, seen on the grounds with Batroc the Leaper of all people. Then, with her initial training complete, she joined Miss Marvel for a few missions/adventures. During one of those, the Doomsday Men ripped the carapace right off of her body, rendering it useless, which also depowered her and left her exposed when Julia Carpenter showed up again. Later, the Puppet Master captured Araña and some other ladies to make them into sex slaves, but she was rescued by Carol Danvers, whom she now kinda saw as her mother figure to herself. Araña was then recruited by Daredevil while he was Spidey's defense attorney, and that took place in 2008. It was after that she linked up with her new friend, Ricky Barnes, aka Nomad, which is how we find them in a Captain America's book after Steve Rogers was shot by a sniper and Bucky Barnes had taken over the Captain America mantle. Together, they fought monsters and drones in the sewer, and they worked to investigate Ricky's brother's death and ended up fighting with Professor Power and Mad Dog of the Secret Empire. Nomad was knocked out with gas in those fights, so Araña took her to Night Nurse for treatment and then later told her if she needed help to reach out. And they did stay in touch after this, as it's shown a couple issues later that they were at the same high school together. Araña then showed up in Spidey's book during a story called Grim Hunt. In issue 637, Anya became the new Spider-Girl after the previous Spider-Girl, Julia Carpenter, took over the Madam Web mantle. Fresh in her new costume, she then showed up in the Young Allies miniseries, still teamed up with her friend Ricky, Nomad. She was being called Spider-Girl now, but always correcting people, except Nomad, who said she should be called Venomette. The other caveat here was that she was depowered still. It was tough to swing around like before, but she managed to hold her own. They ended up teaming up with Firestar, Gravity, and Benito Toro to take on a villain named Aftershock and the Bastards of Evil. It wouldn't be toward the end of the Young Allies miniseries when she finally accepted the name Spider-Girl. And it was then that Spider-Girl got her own miniseries called, appropriately, Spider-Girl. Her first villain as a web-slinger was a lady named Screwball. She ended up in a fight against Red Hulk, helping the Fantastic Four as her father lay motionless on the ground and covered in rubble. It turns out that Gil had interviewed the Fantastic Four years ago for the newspaper he worked for, and their families had become close friends. Distraught, Anya later looked on as first responders collected her dad's body. And she also threw her black suit right in the trash. She changed her mind though not long after that. Red Hulk caught up with her to say that both he and her dad were poisoned by Raven and the Raven Society, and that's how he died. We also learned that FF set up a scholarship in Gil's name that would fund Anya, as Sue and Reed also became her legal guardians. Just after that, Anna Kravinoff started hunting Spider-Girl, leading them to battling on the rooftops of New York. She also battled with Phil Urich when he had taken over the Hobgoblin mantle, followed by another confrontation with Screwball. She was with her Young Allies team, and now Avengers Academy when Arcade started setting traps for them in his attempt to turn New York into another murder world. She teamed up with Reptile to fight Arcade, and then they started to like each other. Anya then teamed up with Young Allies and Secret Avengers to rescue Toro at the time when Onslaught returned back in 2011. Anya was one of the heroes to assemble during the Spider Island event to battle against the Jackal's latest lab work gone wrong, and was there for the last stand in Union Square. During the event, she actually had to team up with Kingpin, Hobgoblin, and the Hand to fight the Sisterhood, and then they all teamed up to battle the Spider Queen. And it was during the Spider Island event when she got her updated power set. During Fear itself, Anya was one of the Chosen, designated the Rogue. They were all trapped on a remote island where they had to fight armored war sharks. And then they took down a vintage helicarrier before it destroyed Honolulu, Hawaii. She later showed up on the Avengers Academy campus, which was on the grounds of the former West Coast Avengers headquarters. Later, she was with the Avengers at Avengers Tower during an Inhuman pandemic. Her teacher was cocooned, and then the cocoon was stolen from the hospital, so Spider-Woman and Black Widow came in to help. They assaulted an AIM facility but were captured by the army in the compound. They were, of course, able to break free and escape, and they then realized that the teacher was Dr. June Covington, aka Toxie Doxie, so Spider-Girl then went after Toxie. When Morlun and the Inheritors launched an interdimensional assault from their headquarters in Loom World, Anya was one of the spider people affected. She went with them to their designated safe zone for a gathering of spiders. Anya went with Spider-Man and Spider-Gwen to Black Cat's speakeasy, where they linked up with Spider-Woman and Silk. They were there to protect Silk after they learned the Inheritors were drawn to her energy. She then paired up with Amazing Spider-Man, Superior Spider-Man, Spider-Punk, Spider-Man India, Spider-Man UK, Spider-Bitch at the Spider Army's bunker on Earth 3145. They all fought with an Inheritor named Karn. It was Anya's interpretation of the ancient scrolls that informed them on where to go. And they ended up teaming up with Karn, and they took the fight right to Morlun. Then, Anya, Gwen, and Cindy hung out on a pirate ship in a deal that Jessica Drew made, which is where we learn that Anya and Cindy are both Eminem fans, but Gwen is not. Anyway, their side quest was to help the Loom World version of Jessica Drew. She was also in the Araña domain of Battleworld during 2015's Secret Wars. They formed a team called Web Warriors, which comprised of Anya, Billy Braddock, Spider-Man India, Spider-Ham, and Spider-Gwen, and they went against Mayor Osborn, Oscorp, and the Sinister Six. Spinning out of Secret Wars, Anya stayed with the Web Warriors team, protecting the strands of the Great Web of Life. They worked with the new Great Weaver and took on worlds like the Electroverse, the Doctor's Octopi, and the Sinister Sextet. Then, during Spider-Geddon, after Norman used the Inheritors' cloning technology to bring them back, Anya joined with the Spider-Girls. Miles Morales and Otto used her knowledge of the Spider Society and the Spider Totems to see where it would lead them. And in the Spider-Geddon aftermath, she was there on Loomworld to honor Karn after he was slain. She next showed up at a time when Kindred and Sin Eater were causing problems in Spider-Man's book. The Spiders team, now called the Order of the Web, appeared to Spider-Man during the battle where Green Goblin showed up again also, projecting their spirits to him from the web of life and destiny. Just as Green Goblin was about to drown Spider-Man, the Spider-Girls showed up for the assist. After Sin Eater shot Green Goblin, Kindred killed Sin Eater, then formed all of the sins into a demon that he sent after Anya and the Order of the Web. The now possessed Order then went to attack Spider-Man. Demon Anya sent a swarm of demon spiders which enveloped Spider-Man and injected him with enough venom to kill a small elephant. The demon spiders ransacked the city until Spider-Man made a deal with Kindred to save them from their affliction, but Peter had to die. The female spiders and Miles then ran into Morlun as Sin Eater in a graveyard. Kindred ended up capturing all the spiders and holding them hostage in his lair, and it ended when Kingpin, now head of Ravencroft, picked up Kindred for imprisonment. Black Widow reached out to Anya for help with a mission after that, so she ended up joining Yelena and Nat, Black Widow and White Widow, at the Web in San Francisco for the investigation into Apogee. She ended up having to break her cover but managed to steal some of Apogee's serum. Anya then teamed up with the Widows to crash Apogee's mass dosing event. They won with help from Marigold, Craig, and Kate Bishop. At a later point, Lucy and Anya ended up captured by traffickers and put in small cages by the Host and Living Blade, but they would later be saved. In 2022's Edge of Spider-Verse series, Anya showed up again, donning a brand new costume, harkening back to her early days for the story. By now, she was going to Empire State University, working on a journalism degree to honor her deceased father, while also web-slinging in her free time. Her tattoo started hurting, and then Madam Web appeared before her to say she was at an inflection point and that her powers were returning to their original totemic roots. She told Anya that the sisterhood was back, and that with Shothra's return, a new hunter named Delilah had risen. In addition to her new costume, she was now back to her original name, Araña. By Dan Slott's new Spider-Man run at the end of 2022, Anya was now at the Spider Sanctuary, hidden on her 616 beta with Madam Web and Zarina, aka Spider UK, as they tracked Shothra, who was now making her move on Parker by sending a waspified Spider Noir and her other minions after him. She actually showed up to help the spiders fight the Hive, using her mystic powers and the webs of Watum as she jumped through a web portal. Araña and Spider UK managed to save Parker, Silk, Morlun, and Miles. Araña then introduced them to the new team and the new spider variants. It turns out that Carpenter, Corazon, and Zahari had saved Morlun from a waspified spider Ma'am on Loomworld, and he ended up on their team as well, despite their history. Jessica Drew was stabbed with a dagger and severed from the Great Web, so Araña and the team put together a mission to a hidden Delvadian temple of the spider goddess in Central America to retrieve a golden spider called the Lost Child of Neith to reweave the lost strands. They fought through traps and defenses like spikes and spears at the temple. Night Spider grabbed the golden artifact just as Shothra's portals opened up and a swarm of her hive attacked. The idol was destroyed and Parker was stabbed with the dagger, erasing him from existence right in front of Araña. How will that turn out? What connection does Anya have to Shothra? We'll have to wait and see, which means that's a wrap on this one, my friends. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.